The galaxy could not wait any longer. Whispers had turned to fear, and fear had turned to rage. The alien empires, once proud and divided, now gathered together for one final strike. If humanity was not crushed now, then no one would ever be able to stop them again. The largest fleet in history was assembled. Thousands of warships from dozens of empires filled the dark skies of space, their weapons glowing like endless stars. The commanders stood tall, their voices full of pride. "This ends today," one alien general declared. "Humans will be erased." The fleet moved toward Earth. On the planet below, humanity watched. Cities went silent. Families hid in shelters. Soldiers stood at their stations, their hearts steady, their eyes burning with fire. Marcus stood in the command center of Earth's defense. His hands rested on the table, his face calm. Outside the window, the sky glowed with the light of alien engines. The sound of alarms filled the air, deep and heavy like a drumbeat of doom. But Marcus did not look afraid. He whispered to himself, words only he could hear, "This is the moment. This is what we prepared for." The alien fleet entered Earth's orbit. Their ships filled the sky, blocking the stars. Their weapons charged, glowing brighter than suns. The ground shook as their voices thundered over comms. "Humans!" they roared. "Your time is over! Submit or die." Silence followed. Then the humans answered, not with words but with light. From deep beneath the surface of Earth, hidden doors opened. Towers of steel rose from the ground. Massive machines awakened, their cores glowing with strange, pulsing energy. The air trembled as the sound of power filled the atmosphere. The ultimate weapon, the project hidden for years, known only to a few, was finally revealed. An energy system that combined human AI with the raw resilience of Earth itself. A weapon that drew strength not from brute force, but from unity. Millions of human minds and machines working together as one. The first blast lit up the sky like dawn. It struck an alien cruiser, tearing through shields, ripping it apart in seconds. Pieces fell toward Earth, burning like fire in the night. The fleet opened fire in rage. Beams of energy, missiles, plasma, everything they had. The sky became a storm of fire. Cities shook, oceans boiled, mountains cracked, but the weapon answered. With each pulse, another alien ship fell. Their proud warships, symbols of centuries of power, broke like fragile glass under the fury of human resolve. The railguns joined in, thunder cracking through space as one shot after another shattered the invaders. Inside the command center, Marcus stood firm. Sweat ran down his face, but his eyes never wavered. Around him, soldiers worked without fear, voices calm even as the world shook. One young officer whispered, "We're holding." "We're actually holding," Marcus only nodded. "No, we're winning." The battle raged for hours. Fire painted the skies, black smoke covered the stars, and the earth shook with every impact. Alien voices turned from pride to shock, from shock to fear, and from fear to silence. By dawn, it was over. The largest fleet in history had been broken. Their ships burned across the void, their survivors fleeing into the darkness. Earth still stood. Humanity still breathed, and the galaxy would never forget. Across the stars, the news spread like wildfire. "The humans have done it," voices whispered in disbelief. "They stood against all of us, and they won." Some species bowed their heads in respect. Others trembled, afraid of what humanity would become. But no one, not even the proudest empire, dared to laugh again. On Earth, families came out from shelters, tears in their eyes. Children looked at the skies, where the smoke still lingered, and whispered the name of their world with pride. Soldiers returned home, tired, scarred, but unbroken. Marcus stood on a hill overlooking the city. The air smelled of smoke and iron, but also of victory. He looked at the rising sun, its light breaking through the clouds, and whispered, "They thought we were weak. But weakness taught us how to fight. Weakness taught us how to endure. And now, we are stronger than all of them." I still remember that day, the day the galaxy fell silent, not from laughter, not from pride, but from fear and respect. The weakest were weak no longer. Humanity had risen, and the stars themselves would never forget it. The storm had passed, but the fear it left behind remained heavy in the air. The rebels could not forget the voice on the radio, nor the last chilling words it spoke. "They are watching you." For nights afterward, the group did not meet. Each of them stayed hidden in their homes, pretending to live their normal lives. But inside, their hearts beat faster. They were no longer afraid in the same way. Fear was still there, yes, but mixed with something else, something dangerous. Hope. Ryan, the old man, could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the radio, heard the voice. He kept whispering to himself, "The chains can be broken." Those words were not just sound. They were a promise, and promises demanded answers. One night, unable to resist, Ryan left his house and walked through the broken streets. The city was quiet, lit only by the cold glow of the council's towers. Drones floated above, their red lights sweeping like hunting eyes. He walked carefully, sticking to shadows, until he reached the ruins of the old library. The library was forbidden. The council had burned most of its books long ago, saying knowledge was dangerous, saying humans could not be trusted with history. But Ryan knew something was still inside, something the council had missed. The door was broken, hanging off its hinges. Dust filled the air and the smell of ash was strong. His footsteps echoed softly on the cracked floor. Then, movement. From the corner of the room, a figure stepped forward. A tall man in a dark cloak, his face hidden beneath a hood. Ryan froze. "You should not be here," the stranger whispered. His voice was low, sharp, and filled with warning. Ryan's heart raced. I heard a message," he stammered. A voice on the radio. "It said the chains can be broken. Do you know what it means?" The stranger tilted his head slightly, as if studying him. For a long moment he said nothing. Only the sound of the dripping ceiling filled the silence. Then slowly he reached into his cloak and pulled out something small. A book. Its cover was torn, its pages yellow, but it was real. Ryan gasped. Books were treasures. Books were dangerous. Books were truth. The stranger placed it in his hands. "If you truly wish to know," he said, "then read. But once you begin, there is no turning back." Ryan opened the book with trembling hands. The words inside were old, written by humans before the council came. They spoke of freedom, of leaders, of inventions and machines built by human hands. They spoke of wars fought not with alien masters, but with human courage. Tears filled Ryan's eyes. "They lied to us," he whispered. The council lied. Humanity was never weak. We were strong. We were free. The stranger nodded. The council fears only one thing, that humans remember who they are. A sound echoed from outside. The hum of drones. Their red lights flashed through the broken windows, searching. The stranger grabbed Ryan's arm. "You cannot stay here," he hissed. "They are closer than you think. Take the book. Hide it. And when the time comes, share it." "But not yet." Ryan clutched the book to his chest. His hands shook, not from fear, but from the weight of what he carried. This was not just paper. This was a weapon. The drones grew louder, their beams cutting across the library walls. The stranger pushed Ryan toward a hidden passage behind the shelves. "Go," he whispered. "If they find you, everything is lost." Ryan ran, his old legs aching, his breath short, but his heart burning with new fire. He escaped into the tunnels beneath the city, the sound of drones fading above him. When he finally reached the small room where the rebels met, he placed the book on the table. The others gathered around, their eyes wide, their voices hushed. "What is this?" the young woman asked. "Proof," Ryan said. "Proof that we are not what the council says we are. Proof that humanity had a history before chains." The boy touched the book with shaking fingers. "What does it mean?" Ryan looked at them, his face hard but his eyes alive. "It means," he said slowly, "that freedom is not a dream. It is a memory, and memories can return." At that moment, a crash echoed outside. The rebels froze. Boots, heavy metallic boots marching down the street. Council soldiers. The group looked at each other, fear crawling back into their throats. If the soldiers found the book, if they found them, it would all end here. Ryan quickly hid the book beneath the floorboards. The room went silent. Shadows swallowed their faces. The sound of boots grew closer, closer, until, It stopped right outside their door. No one breathed, and then 3 loud knocks shook the wood. Boom, boom, boom. The soldiers were here. The sound of the knocks still echoed in the small room. Heavy, slow, and final. Every rebel's heart raced, beating louder than the storm outside. Boom, 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 open! A metallic voice demanded from behind the door. Cold, sharp, without emotion. It was the voice of the council's soldiers. No one moved. The air grew tight, heavy with fear. Ryan's hands trembled as he pressed the book deeper under the floorboards, covering it quickly with an old rug. The young woman whispered, "If they come inside..." "We're finished." Ryan looked around the room, his eyes sharp. "Stay calm. Do not speak unless I do. They cannot know." The door creaked open. 2 soldiers stepped inside. Their armor was black and silver, glowing faintly under the weak light. Their faces were hidden by masks, their eyes nothing but cold glass. The sound of their boots hitting the floor made the rebels flinch. The taller soldier scanned the room with a device, its red light sweeping over the walls, the floor, even the faces of the rebels. The hum of the machine filled the silence. "What are you doing here?" the soldier asked flatly. Ryan forced his voice to stay steady. "We are only workers, sir. We gather sometimes, to share food." The soldier tilted his head, silent for a long moment. The machine beeped, searching. The rebels held their breath. If it detected the book, if it detected anything forbidden, it would all end now. Finally, the device beeped once more and went dark. The soldier lowered it. "Stay inside," he ordered. "Curfew is not over. If we find you outside again, you will disappear." Without another word, the soldiers turned and left. Their boots echoed down the street until silence returned. The rebels exhaled at once, relief flooding the room. Some had tears in their eyes, others shook as if their legs might give out. But Ryan did not sit down. He stood tall, his face pale, but his voice strong. "Do you see now? They fear us. That is why they watch us, why they silence us, why they erase our past. They fear what we can become if we remember." The group looked at him, uncertain. Fear still clung to their skin. But deep inside, something had shifted. A seed had been planted. That night, the rebels lit their first flame of rebellion. Not with fire, but with words. They passed the book around, each person reading a line aloud. Stories of old leaders, of inventions, of battles fought and won by humans. The words felt strange on their tongues, but also powerful. Alive. For the first time, they did not whisper. They spoke clearly. The boy said, "If we had this once, we can have it again." The woman nodded, her eyes bright. "The council is not as strong as they pretend. If they were, they would not fear books. They would not fear voices." Ryan closed the book carefully and placed it back under the floor. "This is only the beginning," he said. "We will grow stronger, but slowly, quietly. We cannot fight yet. First, we must remember who we are." But as the group began to leave, shadows followed them. Among the rebels was one man who had stayed silent all night, his eyes always shifting, his hands restless. His name was Darren, and unknown to the others, he had already betrayed them. When he reached his home, Darren activated a small device hidden in his sleeve. A faint light blinked, sending a signal high into the sky, a message to the council. The rebels did not know it yet, but their secret was no longer theirs. The next evening, when the group gathered again, something felt wrong. The air was heavy, the silence too deep. Ryan looked at their faces and felt unease crawl into his bones. Suddenly, outside, a loud noise shook the walls. Not thunder, not rain, but the sound of marching. The rebels rushed to the window. Down the street, lines of soldiers moved like shadows, their glowing eyes cutting through the night. "They're coming here," the young woman whispered, panic in her voice. Ryan clenched his fists. His heart pounded, but his eyes burned with fire. "No more hiding," he said. "If they want to silence us, we will answer. Tonight, fear will not own us." The rebels looked at him, their fear clashing with something new. Courage. The soldiers' boots grew louder, shaking the floor. The rebels had no weapons, no armor, only each other. But in that moment, something greater than weapons filled the room. Unity. And as the door shook under the force of the soldiers' strike, Ryan whispered to his people, "This is the first flame. Let it burn!" The door exploded open, and the night of silence ended forever. The door crashed open with a blast of metal and smoke. Sparks flew as the council's soldiers stormed inside, their black armor glowing with sharp red lines, their eyes like empty glass. The rebels froze. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The silence before chaos. Then the soldiers raised their weapons. "Down on the ground!" one of them ordered, his voice cold and mechanical. The rebels did not move. They stood together, their eyes wide, their hearts trembling. Ryan stepped forward, his old body shaking but his voice steady. "We are not afraid," he said. The soldier aimed his weapon at him. "You should be." The sound of the gun charging filled the room like a scream of lightning. And then, darkness. The lights flickered, the machines sparked, and the power went out. The storm outside had struck the city's grid, throwing the streets into blackness. In that brief moment of chaos, the rebels acted. The young woman grabbed a chair and threw it at the nearest soldier. The boy pulled Ryan back, dragging him away from the glowing barrels of the weapons. The rebels scattered, the room filling with shouts, footsteps, and crashing sounds. But the soldiers were not human. They moved with perfect order, their boots pounding in rhythm, their weapons firing bursts of light that tore through walls and shattered glass. The rebels escaped into the tunnels beneath the building, their breaths heavy, their eyes wide with fear and adrenaline. Behind them, the soldiers followed, their voices echoing in the stone corridors. "You cannot hide. You cannot run. Humanity belongs to the council." Above ground, the city awoke to terror. Drones filled the skies, their red lights scanning every corner. Screens on the towers flashed warnings. "Rebellion detected. Obey the council. Obey or vanish." People locked their doors tighter, closed their curtains, and prayed the soldiers would pass them by. But prayers meant nothing now. Whole neighborhoods were surrounded, streets filled with marching boots. The council's wrath had begun. Children cried as their parents tried to keep them quiet. The sound of metal claws scraping doors echoed in the night. Anyone suspected of disobedience was dragged away. No questions, no answers. The rebels hid in the tunnels, their bodies pressed against the cold walls. The young woman whispered, "We should leave the city. They will destroy everything to find us." Ryan's eyes burned with anger. "If we run, we leave the others behind. The council wins if we keep hiding." The boy clenched his fists. "But how can we fight them? They have everything. We have nothing." Ryan pulled the book from under his coat. Its torn pages looked fragile, but his hands held it like a weapon. "We have this, and this is more powerful than their machines." The rebels stared at him, confused. "It is not the weapons that defeat the council," Ryan explained. "It is memory. It is truth. If we show others what we have learned, if we remind them who they are, they will rise, one by one until we are many. And when humanity is many, the council cannot hold us." Silence filled the tunnel. The rebels looked at each other, their fear still heavy, but hope sparking again. But above them, the council's wrath grew louder. The soldiers gathered in the central square of the city, hundreds of armored figures lined up in perfect rows. Their commander, taller and darker than the rest, raised a black staff glowing with red energy. "Humans!" his voice boomed, carried through speakers across the city. "You think you can resist. You think you can hide. But rebellion is useless. We own your past. We control your future. And tonight, we take your present." As his words echoed, screens across the city flickered to life, showing images of captured rebels, faces pale, eyes wide with fear. People gasped as they saw neighbors, friends, even family members dragged into chains. The message was clear. This was the price of disobedience. Back in the tunnels, the rebels watched from a hidden screen. Rage burned in their hearts. The boy slammed his fist against the wall. "They will kill everyone." "No," Ryan said softly. "They will try. But tonight something changes. Tonight fear belongs to them." The young woman frowned. "What do you mean?" Ryan lifted the radio they had hidden. Its wires sparked faintly, damaged but alive. "The voice we heard, it was not an accident. It was a signal. Someone out there is fighting the council, And if we can reach them, if we can join them, the Council will learn that humanity is not so easily broken. The rebels leaned closer, their eyes wide. But first, Ryan said, his voice steady as steel, we must survive their wrath. Above them, the sound of soldiers grew louder, echoing through the tunnels. The rebels held their breath, clutching the book and the broken radio like their only weapons. The Council was hunting them. But deep in the darkness, humanity's first rebellion had already begun to burn. The tunnels were dark, dripping with water, and smelled of rust and dust. The rebels sat together, breathing heavily, their clothes wet from the storm above. Fear still clung to them like a second skin. The city above was burning under the Council's punishment. But here, in the shadows, something new was beginning. Ryan placed the broken radio in front of them. Its wires were twisted, its shell cracked, but it was alive. Sparks flickered when he touched it. The old man's eyes glowed with determination. "This," he whispered, "is the start of our weapon." The boy frowned. "That old thing? It barely works. How can it fight the Council's soldiers?" Ryan smiled faintly. "Not every weapon is a blade or a gun. Some weapons are voices. Some weapons are truth. If this radio can send a signal, we can speak to others. We can spread the words the Council fears most, that humanity is not broken." The rebels listened, their eyes wide. The young woman leaned forward. "But can we fix it?" "We don't have tools. We don't have power." Ryan nodded. "Then we will build. We will find what the Council has hidden from us. Old machines, old parts, everything they thought was forgotten." And so, the work began. Days turned into nights as the rebels searched the tunnels and abandoned buildings. They found scraps of wires, broken engines, batteries half dead but not empty. Every piece was carried back to their secret place, deep below the city. The sound of hammering echoed softly. Sparks lit the darkness as they worked. The rebels' hands bled from sharp metal. Their backs ached, but their eyes never lost fire. They were not only repairing a radio, they were repairing hope. But hope was dangerous. Unseen by them, Darren, the traitor in their group, watched silently. He had not sent another signal yet, but his eyes lingered too long, and his silence carried weight. The Council's shadow was still inside their circle. One night, as the rebels worked, the young boy asked, "What if the Council finds us before it's ready?" Ryan paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "Then we fight with our voices. If they take us, let our last words be freedom. Even if they kill us, our truth will live." The boy swallowed hard. His fear did not vanish, but something stronger grew inside him. Finally, after long hours and endless work, the radio hummed. Static filled the tunnel like a storm of whispers. Everyone leaned closer. "Is it working?" the woman asked, her voice shaking with hope. Ryan twisted the knobs, sparks snapping from the wires. The static grew louder, and then a voice. Clearer this time, stronger. Not a whisper, but a call. To the humans who still resist, hold on. You are not alone. We fight too. The Council bleeds and soon it will fall, the rebels gasped. The sound filled their hearts with fire. The boy grinned, tears shining in his eyes. They're real. Others are out there. Ryan nodded slowly, his chest heavy with both hope and fear. This is our weapon. Not machines, not fire, but unity. If we join with them, if we share our knowledge, humanity will rise again. The woman clenched her fists. Then let's send our message. Let them know Earth has not given up. Ryan hesitated, his hand hovering over the transmitter. His voice grew heavy. If we send it, the Council will hear us too. They will come faster, stronger. The rebels looked at each other. The silence stretched. Fear and courage battled inside their eyes. Then the boy whispered, "Let them come. Let them know humanity is not afraid anymore." Ryan smiled, proud. He pressed the switch. The radio sparked to life, and his voice filled the airwaves. To those who fight against the Council, this is Earth. We are alive. We are ready. The chains can be broken. The words echoed into the unknown, carried far beyond their city, maybe beyond their world. But high above, in the cold towers of the Council, alarms began to sound. Screens flashed red. Unauthorized transmission detected. The council's leaders turned toward the glowing map that showed Earth. Their voices were calm but sharp as blades. Rebellion confirmed. Send more drones. Send more soldiers. If they build weapons, burn their cities. If they build hope, destroy their voices. The rebels did not hear those words. They only heard their own hearts beating, faster and stronger than ever before. But Ryan noticed something strange. As the radio signal spread, a second sound leaked into their room, a faint beep, steady and sharp. His eyes widened. "It's being tracked," he whispered. The woman froze. "What do you mean?" "They know," Ryan said, his voice grim. "The council knows where we are." The rebels turned pale. Footsteps echoed in the tunnels, faint but growing louder. The sound of metal boots. The sound of the council's wrath returning. Ryan clutched the radio, his eyes blazing with both fear and fire. "No matter what happens," he said, "remember this moment. Tonight, humanity spoke again. And once a voice rises, it can never be silenced." The footsteps came closer. Shadows stretched along the tunnel walls, and the rebels knew their secret weapon had worked. But it had also called the enemy straight to their door. The tunnels shook with the echo of heavy boots. Red lights flickered on the walls as the council's soldiers closed in, their metallic voices echoing through the darkness. "Humans, surrender! You cannot escape!" The rebels huddled together, their faces pale, their breaths sharp. The radio still hummed faintly, proof that their message had reached someone beyond. But that victory was also their curse. The council now knew where they were. Ryan's hand trembled as he gripped the book and the radio. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with fire. "We knew this would come. The council cannot allow us to rise. But tonight we do not run." The young woman looked at him, her fists clenched. "Then we fight?" Ryan nodded. "With whatever we have." The boy picked up a broken metal pipe, his arms shaking but his eyes steady. Others armed themselves with rocks, sharp scraps, anything their hands could hold. They had no armor, no guns, only courage. The footsteps grew louder. Then the tunnel filled with red light. The soldiers appeared, their masks glowing, their weapons charged. "Lay down your arms," one ordered, "or be erased." For a moment's silence. The rebels exchanged a glance. Fear wrapped around their throats, but something stronger cut through it. Unity. "No," Ryan said firmly. "We will not kneel." The soldiers raised their weapons. Light filled the tunnel, and the battle began. The rebels fought with everything they had. The young woman swung her pipe, striking one soldier's arm and sending sparks flying. The boy threw rocks, shattering a soldier's visor. The tunnel roared with screams, metal crashes, and the electric hum of weapons. The soldiers were stronger, faster, but the rebels had something the council did not: desperation, and a fire that refused to die. Ryan stayed at the back, protecting the book and radio. His old body was weak, but his voice was strong. He shouted, "Stand together! Do not break!" But the soldiers pushed harder. One by one, rebels fell, their cries echoing in the dark. The young boy stumbled, his pipe ripped from his hands. A soldier raised his weapon to strike him down, and then the tunnel shook. A deep, thunderous sound rolled through the earth. The lights flickered, dust rained from the ceiling. Everyone froze. "What was that?" The woman gasped. The soldiers looked at each other, their formation breaking. For the first time, they seemed uncertain. Then the sound came again, louder, closer. Not from the rebels, not from the council. From above, boom, boom, boom. Explosions shook the city streets. Screams echoed through the tunnels, but they were not human screams. They were mechanical. Drones falling from the sky. Ryan's eyes widened. They heard us. Someone heard our call. Above ground, the night sky was on fire. Ships not of the council's design streaked through the air, their weapons tearing drones apart. Lights burned brighter than stars, battles erupting in every direction. Humanity was not alone. Allies had arrived, but in the tunnel, the fight was not over. The soldiers, angered and desperate, renewed their attack. The rebels stumbled, their small weapons breaking under the force of the council's might. And then at the worst moment, the radio sparked violently and went dark. "No!" Ryan cried, holding the dead machine. "Not now." The rebels froze in horror. Their lifeline was gone. The weapon they had built, the voice they had carried, silenced. The soldiers stepped forward, their weapons glowing brighter. "It ends here," the commander hissed. The rebels braced themselves, their backs to the wall. Their hope flickered. Their courage bled, and then something impossible happened. The dead radio crackled. Faint at first, then louder. A voice filled the tunnel, not the council's, but human. "Strong, fierce, unbroken, hold on, Earth! We are with you!" The rebels froze, eyes wide, hearts pounding. The soldiers hesitated, their cold masks turning toward the sound. The book in Ryan's hands seemed to glow under the dim light, as if the past itself was rising to meet the future. He raised it high and shouted, his voice echoing with every ounce of strength left in him. "You will not erase us! Humanity remembers." The rebels, bloodied and bruised, screamed with him. Their voices filled the tunnel, shaking the air, drowning the sound of the council's machines. The soldiers fired, but something had changed. The tunnel shook again, not from weapons, but from the roar of human voices rising above ground. The city was awakening. From windows, from rooftops, from broken streets, people shouted, screamed, cried the words they had kept silent for centuries. "Freedom! Humanity! The chains can be broken!" The soldiers looked around, their perfect order cracking. For the first time, the council's warriors seemed afraid. The battle in the tunnel raged on, but it was no longer a fight of weapons. It was a fight of voices, of unity, of memory. And Rian knew, even as blood ran down the walls, even as the rebels struggled to breathe, that something greater had begun. The final confrontation was not about one battle. It was about all of humanity standing together, voices louder than chains, stronger than fear. And in that moment, in the heart of darkness, the first light of victory began to shine. The night sky burned. Above the city, fire streaked across the heavens as strange ships fought against the council's drones. Explosions lit the dark like storms of light. Every boom shook the earth, every flash painted the ruins in fire. In the tunnels, the rebels clung to life. Their bodies were weak, their weapons broken, but their voices had become louder than ever. Ryan stood at the front, the forbidden book in one hand, the broken radio in the other. His eyes blazed with something no machine could kill: hope. The council's soldiers stepped back, shaken by the roar of human voices rising from the city. They had always faced silence, obedience, fear. Now, for the first time in centuries, they faced defiance. The young woman, her face bloodied, raised her arm high. "We are not your slaves," she shouted. Her words echoed through the tunnels, up to the streets, where more and more people poured out of their hiding places. Children, workers, elders, everyone shouted, screamed, cried. Their voices joined together, a storm stronger than the council's weapons. "The chains can be broken! The chains can be broken!" The chant grew, spreading from street to street, from voice to voice, until the whole city seemed to shake with it. The soldiers tried to strike, their weapons glowing, but their aim faltered. They fired into the crowd, but the people did not scatter. They kept coming, hands empty, hearts full. For every human who fell, 10 more raised their voices louder. Rian lifted the book high. "They wanted us to forget," he roared. "But memory lives. Humanity lives." The soldiers hesitated, their cold masks turning side to side. The council had not prepared them for this, for a world united not by machines, but by memory and courage. Then the commander stepped forward. Taller, darker, his staff glowing with red energy. His voice cut through the air like a blade. "Silence them. Erase them." The soldiers moved again, weapons raised. Fear rippled through the rebels. The boy grabbed Ryan's arm, his voice shaking. "We can't stop them. They're too strong." Ryan looked at him, his voice soft but steady. "Strength is not only in weapons. Watch." He placed the radio on the ground. Sparks danced over its broken wires. The rebels stared at it, confused, until a sound filled the air once more. Not static this time, not whispers, but voices, thousands of them. Across the skies, across the stars, voices poured into Earth. From other colonies, from other worlds, from every human who still lived beyond the Council's chains. The radio carried them all. Stand, Earth. Fight, Earth. You are not alone. The tunnels shook with the sound. The soldiers froze, their glowing eyes flickering. The Council's perfect order was breaking. Then, with one final boom, the sky itself seemed to split. A massive ship appeared above the city, unlike any the Council had built. Its lights cut through the smoke, its engines roared like thunder. And on its side, painted in white letters, was a single word the Council had tried to erase: humanity. The people screamed, cried, and shouted louder than ever. The chant rose like fire, unstoppable. The chains can be broken. The chains can be broken! The commander raised his staff to strike, but his soldiers did not move. Their formation broke. Some lowered their weapons, others stepped back. The chant filled even their ears, their cold glass eyes trembling, and then the impossible happened. One soldier dropped his weapon, then another. The Council's chains were breaking, not with fire, but with memory, with unity. The commander screamed, swinging his staff. But the people surged forward, not with weapons, but with voices, hands, hearts. He fell beneath the weight of humanity rising. When the sun rose the next morning, the city was scarred, broken, and burning, but free. The rebels stood together on the rooftops, watching the sky clear for the first time in their lives. The drones were gone, the Council's banners torn. For the first time, the stars above looked like promises, not prisons. The boy whispered, his voice soft with wonder, "We did it." Ryan placed a hand on his shoulder. His eyes filled with tears. "No," he said. "Humanity did it. Together." The book lay open on the table beside them, its pages fluttering in the wind. It was no longer just a relic. It was the beginning of a new history. The chains had been broken, and humanity would never bow again.